You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sara J Loureiro.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. It is me, Sara, here, and today I have my good friend Kristin here with me, and we're going to talk about all of things delivering a client experience and really how you can get a lot more in-person networking and referrals to really help to grow your business as well. So Kristin, one thing that I really loved about her when I first met her was that when we actually joined a mastermind together, Kristin had done almost her entire business offline. And then she joined our mastermind in order to do things more online. And so she still does things online. However, her offline networking and her offline referrals continue to be just such a great source of income for her. And so I thought that it would be really great to have her on today and talk about like what that entire process was like for her, where she started out, all of that kind of stuff. So Kristin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and then we'll just go ahead and dive in.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. I'm excited to have this conversation because I think it's something, I think a lot of people leave a lot of money on the table by focusing on just new client acquisition and getting leads online. And I mean, the online space is amazing. You have access to so many people and across the world, and like you can have a conversation with someone in a moment. So I'm not saying to give up that by any means, but I think there is a place for referrals, affiliates, these in-person kind of like networking opportunities to build your business. And like, as you said, I started my business in 2016. Up until 2020, I really relied pretty much 100% on referrals, affiliates, and these strategic partnerships that I had created. And so that was like got me to multi six figures. And then in order to break past that, that's when I was like, okay, I'm kind of like tapping out this strategy, but that just kind of gives you an idea. Like there's a lot of money to be had in that space. So it's not just like a couple random people here and there. It's like you can actually put an integrated strategy in place to leverage in-person relationships and like past clients that you've worked with and things like that. So where do you want to start with it?
Well, tell us about your story. So you started out in 2016. I think I've heard this story before from you, but tell everyone else, like, where do you start with this? So where did you start? How did it end up leading into a multiple six-figure business before you even got online?
Yeah. So I left the corporate world in 2016. I was doing corporate leadership development. I had been involved in HR. I had worked with some of like the biggest companies in the city that I live in, Vancouver, and had developed over my career like really good relationships. So, one of the things that we can talk about is this idea of like reputation management and how that's really important for the strategy to work. Like people have to want to refer you. They want to be able, putting your name on somebody is like a big deal, right? Is like to say like, oh, I recommend this person, or you should go work with this person. It's like a big deal. So reputation management is a huge thing. And I kind of, I guess, like wasn't really conscious about it, but just by doing a great job and being able to, produce at a high level, I had built these really strong relationships. So when I went out to start my coaching and consulting business, I really didn't have like too much of a plan. It was called Winning Defined by You, Coaching, Consulting, and Training. Like it was like this like mashup of anything that I had kind of done. I was like, okay, I'm going to just like give it a go. And what I did was in my first month, I just created a list of all of my contacts, and I was like created, my offerings of like, this is what I could do for you. And I just reached out to every single person and asked for a coffee, asked for a conversation. And some of those people were an immediate yes. And that was great. And we'll talk about what to do with those later. But other people were like, it's not for us or not for me, but I know somebody that might be a great fit for you. And I'm just thinking of like one client that comes to mind. It was someone that I reached out to. She put me in touch with this client that ended up a coaching client that I ended up working with for over 6 years. Like he was my longest standing client, and we just stopped working together like maybe a year and a half ago now. So just really cool around how that can kind of work. So it was that's how it started. And then the really interesting thing I think about this strategy is it has a snowball effect. So it starts out slower and you might not see a lot of results from it, or you might be like, oh, this is a lot of effort for like not a lot coming in, but it starts to build momentum over time. Like, well, I can just share recently, I got a referral from a client that I've been working with on and off doing like strategic planning and stuff like that. She puts me in touch with one of her contacts. This new contact is such an easy sale for me because she comes like I come recommended to her. So like there's no trying to convince, the authority's already there. It's just more about determining fit. I sign her, and then she sends me within the month three more high ticket clients. They were $7,500 packages each. So from one referral, that's like over for around $30,000 from one person who has now who looks at me as being like a strategic partner that they can send people to. So my story and a little bit into like why I think this is such a valuable strategy to put into place. And we can kind of dig into some of the details around that if you'd like, but just tell me where you kind of want to go from here.
Yeah, well, I love this so much because one of the very first things that I always ask my clients is, okay, do you have an in-person referral network? Do you have what is your lowest hanging fruit? Because when you're first starting out, those are literally the best people that you can go to. And so like developing like emails for them, like personalizing things for them, I think is also where I first started out. So it's kind of interesting because I didn't even realize that this was also my thing. But because I ended up moving, because I was living in Toronto at the time, because I ended up moving here to Nicaragua and I knew I was going to move, I was like, well, I don't want to invest too much time in my in-person relationships. However, now that I'm thinking about it, my very first few clients were friends that I got who were really interested in diving into like lifestyle and yoga coaching. And then even just through conversations with friends, I remember like one of the most fruitful conversations that I had with a friend was I met up with her at the Eaton Center downtown Toronto. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I just got my coaching certification. I just, like did my yoga teacher training. And I'm looking, like I'm going to be looking to start private one-to-one yoga. Not only did she become my client, but her boyfriend at the time was a personal trainer who worked at the Ritz-Carlton. I had no idea, right? And one day she was just like, hey, I told Aaron about you. And Aaron has some clients that he wants to refer to you. And then I started working with his clients. And so it was just so interesting how I didn't even think that that was going to go anywhere. But just by talking to people and just by telling people what it is that I was doing, I opened myself up to a network. And then I would say by the end of that year, I just from my in-person referrals, I got probably about 5 clients, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easy.
And a couple of things you said there, I think is important to just double click on around what makes this strategy effective is people need to know how to refer you and what to refer people to you for. So one of the exercises I'll do with people is get them to share like with a partner in a small group around like who you help, how you help them. And if the people in that group don't immediately have a couple people pop to mind, that they're like, oh, yeah, I could have this person. You're not being clear enough in your messaging and your positioning that people know how to really utilize you. So, for example, is like something really loose is like, I help women, high achieving women achieve their goals. Like, there's I wouldn't know what to do with that. If someone told, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. But I wouldn't be like, oh, I can like think of someone that would be, a fit for you. Where like for you, for example, is like when I think of you is like, okay, someone who's in the online coaching space who wants help like optimizing their online funnels. Like if someone came to me being, I need help with this, do you know someone that would be a good fit? I'd clearly know to send them to you. And so in order for this strategy to work, your messaging, your positioning, like who you help, how you help them has to be really dialed in. Otherwise, people don't know how to use you.
Ooh, so good. So good. Yeah. And we were also talking a little bit earlier about that client experience and making sure that client experience is really mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, the online experience and the ultimate like reputation management of the online experience and that how that also helps for referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everyone wants to do a good job, right? I mean, no one's like, I'm gonna like, have it just do the bare minimum, do a shitty job. But it is really important that if you're gonna leverage this strategy, you have to have as much substance as like sizzle, right? So the outside can't look better than the inside. And we've all been part of programs like that, where it's like the marketing looks amazing and they're promising the world. And then you get inside and you're kind of like, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. You're never going to get great referrals if you set it up like that. It's a very short term kind of strategy. So for this to work, you have to make sure that your client experience, you're over delivering, you're surprising and delighting, you're like having people leave feeling like and mapping their like success so that they can see like, this is what I wanted. This is where I was when I started. And this is where I am when I'm done, when I finish, so that they can actually see their progress. So in terms of creating those client journeys and experiences, one of the things that I think is like super important is the onboarding experience. So like once they say yes, like what happens after that? Is it simply that they get a contract that they have to sign, they have to pay you, and then they get plopped into like a online portal and linked to calls? Like that's not super exciting. Like if you're buying something that's high ticket, and I work with my clients mostly who do high ticket, is like you want to have this almost like concierge like experience. So when they come on board, they feel like super held, excited. They're like welcomed into the group, if it's a group, integrated into the group or into the experience. And you're getting them some like quick wins right off the bat. So there's like a lot of research around this that if we create quick wins for people right away, their motivation and momentum lasts a lot longer than if they have to wait a long time to see a reward. So if you're thinking about how to design your offerings, thinking about that first 30 days in an offering, if it's like a longer package, how are you actually creating a quick win for them in their first 30 days? So one of the things I'll do with clients is create like an income challenge in the first 30 days. And with the goal of like, let's try to get your investment back like in the first 30 days. And it's like a really fun way to get them like a quick win. And even if they don't make their full investment back, they get, something that is like, okay, this is like, I'm on the right track here.
I love that. I really, really like that. I'm actually writing some notes down myself with this because I do so many different onboarding things. But I've never done the quick win with the 30 days. Although it's really interesting because I've been in a program once that had that entire model, but because in my opinion, the program wasn't very well designed, and I don't really think that they had high caliber people in it. I think that really fell short.
And then that sucks because no one gets the quick win and they're like, this sucks.
Exactly, right? So it's like I also think you need to have your program like so well thought out in terms of processes because
Yeah.
I mean, I love the process that I've created for clients. It just makes the most sense for me to guide them through in terms of like what it is that we need to focus on first, second, third. I think
Yeah.
that that's so important. And if you go into a program and the immediate thing that you feel is overwhelmed, like that's not a good sign.
No. Yeah, absolutely. You need to like in curriculum design, we call it scaffolding the experience. So just like kind of like scaffolding for a building is like you layer on top and you can't just like and this is kind of going off track, but it's kind of with the client experience is that a trap that a lot of people fall into is it comes from such a beautiful place is I want to give so much value and I want to like, just give them everything I've got. But that often actually it holds people back because to your point, they feel overwhelmed. So they have all this information that they have to like siphon through and figure out how to use it. And information alone doesn't create any results. Like we can Google everything pretty much now or chat GPT it. So as a facilitator, as a coach, your job is to design an experience that is going to help them take information and embody it or implement it. And so that's really part of this, like creating a great client experience is like, is your program designed in a way that gets people results, or are you just piling a shit ton of information into something and calling it a program? And that doesn't work.
Oh, that's so good. I love that so much. And it really reminds me of an experience, once again, that I had about a year ago where I came into a program and it was just like literally hours and hours and hours of the head coach just like giving trainings where I'd have to fast forward through like the first 20 minutes of everything just to understand exactly what it is that he was teaching. And I found it very frustrating as someone who is so high performing and someone who didn't really have a whole lot of time to kind of like go through all of these rah motivational trainings. And this is what I've also appreciated about other programs that we've been in together, right? Where the information is just like, okay, here's step one, here's step two. This training is going to be 15 minutes because that's really all you need the training to be. It's in and out. You get your PDF with it. And so understanding how to design the client experience so they can flow through it without being like, oh my God, there's so much information here. Like, where do I even start?
Totally. That's like one of my pet peeves is when I see like sales pages or it's like get access to my like course vault, like 50 master classes. It's like that's like useless to me. It's like I don't want to go through 50 master classes. I want pointed information and a process that can help me implement what I need to know. So yeah, the design is like a huge part of the client journey and the experience and having people actually get results. Because if people don't get results, they're not going to be raving fans. They're not going to be brand advocates afterwards. So thinking about your program being the product that you're selling and making sure that you're dialing in the product, not just the marketing around the product, is huge when it comes to this. The other thing I would say is like the touch points throughout the program. So, there's the program itself, but like having multiple touch points for multiple different learning styles is also really important. So, some people need to read stuff, some people need to experience it, some people love the group calls. So, having like these touch points where you're sending emails, having regular calls, having the like audios and videos and worksheets, designing your program in a way that has multiple touch points that can guide people through the experience, including things like 1 month check-ins, midway check-ins, like end of program check-ins, so that you're actually tracking people's experience and getting them to reflect on their experience is important. And it also gives you like a little red flag if after 30 days, someone's like, I'm not getting anything from this, or I'm not able to utilize this program in the way I thought. You can then get ahead of it so that you're not getting to the end of the program and them not getting results. You can make sure that you're giving them, and this doesn't have to be you give them stuff for free. It might be like an upsell or something like that, that actually allows you to create more revenue and support them at the same time.
Ooh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And so going back to the referrals and the affiliates, when do you suggest that someone, let's say, for example, you have your first perfect fit ideal client run through your program, when do you suggest to ask that person for a referral?
Yeah, great. So I usually get this like right off the bat in terms of once they're inside the program, is like, if you know anybody that would be a good fit, like put that somewhere. Like it could be an email, it could be in your online course platform. So you're kind of like planting the seed there. And I usually like to give some sort of incentive to do that. So, people for the most part, actually, when I ask them about when people refer people to me then I send the incentive to them, they're like, oh, like I would have done it anyways. It doesn't matter. So they're going to do it anyways, but there is something to having that value exchange that I think allows you to create more of that strategic partner over time, because they're getting something back for the energy output that they're giving you, right? So they're giving you something, and there's the law of reciprocity. Like there has to be give and take. Otherwise, the system or the relationship dies. And so it doesn't have to be huge, but something to be able to say, like, you give me something, I'll give you something. It's like this reciprocal relationship. So I usually incentivize that right up front, telling people. So if they come in, a lot of people tend to have like a lot of momentum up front and excited, and they'll be like most passionate about the program in the first, I would say, like month to two. And then they go through this like doubt and dip, right? So people will get to a point where they're kind of like, maybe it's not happening as fast for them or something like that. So I usually try to check in around that time. And if people are having a doubt and dip, I'm not going to ask them for a referral or something like that at that point in time. So you have two kind of paths in the middle of the program. With those people that are doubting and dipping, your job is to get them results, and to support them in getting their results. And then if they're flying and they're having great results, that's a great time to ask for a testimonial, or case study or something like that. So you could get a testimonial video or something like that at that point.
Beautiful. It's all about the temperature checks, right?
Yes, exactly.
You need to get the vibe check. You need to get the, like, how is this person feeling? And so many of my clients are like, but I don't know if that person's going to give me a testimonial, or like, I feel shy to ask them for it. Or, like that person didn't necessarily get the results that I wanted them to get inside the program. And what I find, and I don't know if you find this as well, is results come in so many different shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. And what I've actually started to do is, I have a ton of like monetary results that my clients get. And so I always try to highlight those just because I'm a business coach. Yeah. But recently as well, one thing that I've noticed that is in a lot of like outtake forms and a lot of things that people say inside of my client testimonials is, I just felt so supported, and I felt like you really actually cared about me and you really listened to me. And so I've actually started to also ask clients who haven't gotten like those massive monetary results that they wanted to get, let's say, for example, in the 90 days, I've had some clients do testimonials there. And one thing that I remember, this was years ago, but what I found so fascinating was I had a client, this was back in, I think, like 2018, that had created 10K months. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the testimonial of the year. Like I was so excited, like we did the client success interview. And then I had a client who, I can't remember what she said, but it was something around like feeling like she had a big sister and a support system.
Yeah.
And when I looked at, I think it was like the emails that we sent out for each one, the one that was like the support system one actually got the highest open and click rates, and the 10K month one didn't. Mm-hmm. And that's when I really realized, I was like, not everyone is just looking for these like massive, grandiose, like, here, look at my client who made so much money. A lot of people are just looking to feel seen and heard inside of programs as well. And so I think that that's like, do you want to touch on any of that at all?
Yeah, I think that's great. Is like, so there's the internal transformations that people are getting, and then the external ones. And they're both valuable in terms of creating, case studies, testimonials, or letting people know what they want. And I think, to me, there's something about like the external transformations are interesting, but it's more about like how people got there. Because a lot, say for your example, is like a lot of people online are saying, I can help my client get 10K months or whatever that is, right? But the how is what people are like, I think, more curious about, around like, okay, but what did that look like? Like, was it like, am I going to have to message 100 people a day in DMs? Am I going to have to like, how am I going to feel in the process? So I think what you're talking to is like getting both of the person's experience as well as the result that they created because of that experience in the case study. So it sounds like you do what I would recommend is like get people, like actually do an interview with people so that you're able to ask them these questions that solicit the kind of feedback that you're looking for. I find that if you just get people to like write a testimonial, or like, hey, could you write me a testimonial about your experience, or send me a video, they usually kind of suck because people don't know what to do with that. And then they're kind of awkward and they want to make it sound good, and it's not like natural. So it's like, have a conversation like we're having and just like hit record and just say, hey, let's like just talk about your journey. It's like, where were you when you started? Like, what were some of the like internal and external things you were dealing with? What did you want to create? Where were you at in your life, business, relationship, whatever you work with people in? And then talk about the gaps, like, and what was stopping you from getting there, the internal and external. I didn't have the strategy, I didn't have the mindset, I didn't have the belief. And then ask them what they found most valuable in terms of how you worked with them. And this is where you're probably going to get the different kind of answers. I was supported. I felt really supported and seen. It was clear and, and non-complicated. And then the result is the result that you can speak to, but the in-between stuff is actually what becomes interesting. And then people can kind of tune into, is that the kind of person and program that I'm aligned with in terms of, the values, energetics, that kind of stuff. So you'll be able to hear and get more aligned clients because all the people that are talking about working with you would have this experience of you of like, I'm really supported. It wouldn't be this like huge program that you get lost in and all of that kind of stuff. So you can differentiate based on the experience you create for people, not just the result that you're creating.
Ah, beautiful. I love that so much. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it really also does make me think too about how I have a lot of clients who are like, well, Sara, I don't have any testimonials yet, or I don't have testimonials as good as yours. Like, how can I sell my programs? Like, how can I still have these referral networks and all of this kind of stuff? And when I take a look at my intake forms, and that's another thing, I'm assuming that you do it as well. Like you have a very thorough intake form. One thing that I always ask in my intake forms is, what made you want to work with me in specific? Like what was it about this program? What was it about Sara in specific that made you want to work here? And the really interesting thing is that some people do talk about the results and they'll be like, oh yeah, like I saw her client testimonials and it sounds like a lot of her clients are getting really great results. But honestly, the vast majority of people, when they respond to that message, they like, I've heard the word genuine and cares so many times. And that just like, it really like warms my heart because then you also have to ask yourself, well, why are people using those words in your industry? Right. And how can you also then use those words within your own marketing? Because what I'm assuming is that a lot of these ladies who come on sales calls with me, let's say, for example, they're probably on sales calls with people who just feel like they're cut and dry, who just like want to push them into a program. And I don't, it's interesting because it's not even like I try to be genuine and caring. It's it's not like, oh, I'm
just who you
acting so
are.
well.
Yeah.
It's literally just, I guess that's just the way that I come across and the way that I speak to people. And I think it's just really beautiful because we all think that people are just looking for these like really grandiose, massive results all of the time. And I think that really like comes in the way of a lot of people's imposter syndrome. But at the end of the day, like people are also looking for coaches in specific and like service-based providers who are going to treat them as a human, and not just a number.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, you're speaking to something like whether you're online or offline is you're going to have like a reputation based on how you come across. And so you're going to end up finding people that match with that or don't match with that. And so if you're doing it online already, is like the offline stuff it's like a natural segue that you can kind of like leverage. So like if you're online, testimonials, case studies, social proof is probably even more important. And so, you're going to want to get that anyways. So it's just collecting it kind of as you go and hearing, as you said, what are people generally saying? What are the themes? How can you integrate that into your messaging? And what I find is really cool about building your business around referrals and referrals essentially is that you end up having like amazing communities because they're like people bring great people in. So like I can say is like I've honestly there's only a few people that have ever come through that I'm like that wasn't like the perfect fit, but otherwise it's like pretty good communities and fits, and everyone like is so supportive, and they're like, birds of a feather in a way. So that is like the benefit around really leveraging referrals and affiliates and things like that. And maybe that's something I'll just speak to is like, to me, there's a difference between just collecting case studies and asking for referrals and setting up strategic partnerships, which can be like strategic partnerships, affiliates, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think when you get to a point where you want to more systematize this like offline strategy, creating these strategic partners and affiliates can be really powerful because you end up with a funnel essentially that you don't have to put ads to or anything like that. So it's very similar in a lot of ways to ads. Is like in ads, you'd be spending on getting visibility. And that's kind of the point of, doing online ads. With a strategic partnership is you're essentially doing the same thing. You're paying for visibility or access to someone who has your ideal clients in their community. And this can work really well. So it's like you find someone that has your ideal clients in their community, and you think about how can you position yourself and your services that's adjacent to what they're doing. It can't be obviously in competition, otherwise that doesn't make sense, but in a way that could actually support that community, and then set up like a formal agreement with them where it's like, anyone you send me, I'll give you 20% or $1,000 or whatever it is, like figure that out. And it ends up being worth it because it's like those, especially if you have scalable programs, obviously, because you'd be spending that money on ads or another way of getting those people. It's just a different way to do it offline. So that's just a little addition beyond just asking for testimonials and case studies. And my experience is like, you don't need a ton of those. You get like a couple, 1 to 2 strategic partners. That's all you need.
Ooh, yes. I think that's a really great way to end things as well. And it's funny that you say that because once again, looking back, I remember I've done summits in the past. I don't find summits work as well, or I don't feel like they have been working as well, like in recent years, but in previous years, I've done summits. And I just remember one of my summits, I had a strategic partnership, and like, I had no idea how big she was. Or else I probably would have had like so much imposter syndrome, even asking her to be on my summit. But we hit it off just so incredibly well. We had like the best conversations. And I had no idea, like she was on like a Fiat commercial. She had like all of these things, and we entered in a strategic partnership where she was a health coach. I was a yoga teacher. And she, like, our launch went super well because she put it into her email list. And so that's, I think, another really great way to end this is like, you never really know who is in your circle, who could help you out like a lot. And all you need to do is ask,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's, one of the things that I think a lot of people that's where the inner work comes in is like, if you notice that you're having resistance around asking for these things, asking your network, reaching out, finding out if people need support, that's where what's getting in your way, and then doing that work so that you can do that. But otherwise, the strategy isn't so tricky. It's like really simple, and that's the beauty of it. But sometimes the things that get in the way are more of the like inner belief, confidence, like worthiness, all of those things that can come up, but that's a different conversation. So we'll leave that for another time.
Next podcast episode.
Yeah.
Left us with a lot to think about. So thank you so much. I honestly think this was like such a great, helpful episode. Where can people find you if they want to find out more about you?
Yeah, awesome. So social on Instagram or LinkedIn, and it's just my name at Kristin Constable. Or you can head over to my website, kristinconstable.com.
Great. And Kristin with 2 I's. I always need to say that with my name as well, because it's Sara without an H.
Yes. I was like 2 I's, but yes, I-N at the end.
No E's.
Yeah.
Right,
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarajloureiro.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.